My goodness. All right, see now. Ms. McClellan and Ms. Lewis, good afternoon. Are you helping us out today?
I am a one-man show today, Judge, so
Right.
I'm zooming and I'm doing the order, so.
Welcome to the world. All right, let's begin.
Okay, so, and your reset date is October the 10th, 2024 for the SAP. I think I put in the chat.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Lal, and this is going to be the expedited accusation calendar with the State Court of Fulton County. This calendar includes cases in which individuals were recently arrested and booked at the Fulton County Jail, and their cases have now been formally accused by the prosecutor, who is the Solicitor General of Fulton County. Hence, this would be the defendant's first appearance or before a judicial officer. When I call your case, I will let you know what are the charges brought against you, what is your new case number, your accusation number, to set a bond and to appoint counsel to represent you if necessary, and also to provide you with a new court date if relevant. Some of you may qualify for what we call a signature bond or a UJR. For those type of bonds, you would not have to pay for your bond to be released, but you would have to strictly comply with certain conditions in order to preserve your signature bond. If you do not comply, your bond may be revoked and converted to what we call a surety bond or a cash bond. The individuals who do not qualify for a signature bond or a UJR today, you will receive a surety bond or a cash bond, depending on the allegations and your criminal record history. For those particular type of bonds, you would have to either pay for the bond out of your own pocket or through a bonding company. If you are a defendant charged with one or more misdemeanor offenses today, please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say about the facts of your case, your statements can and will be used against you in the treatment of your case. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to represent you. Courtroom 2, who do we have?
Position number 1, Mr. Carr.
Brandon Carr is accused of 1 count of simple battery, family violence, 1 count of criminal trespass, and battery, family violence, stemming from a September 26, 2024 incident. The accusation is 24 CR 6745J. Mr. Carr, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Counts. Would that be you?
Yes, good morning, or good afternoon, rather, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. Okay. Mr. Howard, is that?
First arrest.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Mr. Jones, good afternoon. And what's the state's recommendation?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. So this incident took place back on September 26th of 2024, where officers responded to 8675 Steeple Chase, where officers met with the victim, Mr. Floyd Carr, which is the father of the defendant, who stated that his son, Brandon Carr, has a alcohol problem and that he went and hid some bottles from Mr. Carr. Upon locating those bottles, he noticed that one of the bottles was missing. He then confronted the defendant, and the defendant got upset and threw the bottle, attempted to calm the situation, Your Honor. The victim went into his room, and the defendant entered, calling the victim Satan, and began attacking him. During the attack, the victim's glasses was knocked off, and officers observed blood and several scratches on the victim, Your Honor. For that, the state's recommendation is going to be a $2,000 SOB through pretrial services. No drugs or alcohol as a weapon, and no further contact with the victim if the court can sound for the victim, as I hear that he is on it at this time.
Right. I have a request to have Floyd Carr. I see a Lee Carr on the Zoom. If either of you would like to contribute to these proceedings, you would need to unmute and start your video. All right, the person on Samsung, I don't know who you are. And then I have a Lee Carr. Mr. Lee Carr, are you Floyd Carr?
I am.
All right, sir. Would you like to add anything to these proceedings?
Yes, I would.
Go ahead, sir. Oh, just 1 second. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
All right, yes, sir. Well, is that your son, Brendan Carr?
Yes.
And does he live with you?
Yes, he does.
All right, and what would you like to tell us?
Okay. Brandon does have an alcohol problem. We are addressing it. None of this should have happened. I called 911 because we got in an argument after he denied using alcohol that day. I called 911 after calling them, and in the middle of the call, I said, Brandon, calm down. I said, okay, we don't need the 911 call. And we started to talk, intelligently and making some progress. And then the police showed up. I didn't realize they were going to show up after indicating that we were fine. So they came in and they asked if they could come in, and I said yes. And my son and I had been talking. Everything seemed to be fine. He knows he's had a problem, and I'm going to go through a few more details in just a second. But we were doing fine, and I was trying to hold him down to try to calm him down when he came in the room. And I had been crying and praying. And I don't think he realized it. He probably thought I was screaming or something. I was crying and trying to help out, asking God to help him. And I don't think he quite understood that when he came in the room. I tried to hold him down, to try to calm him down. Was able to hold him down and calm him down, but he scratched my face a little bit with his fingernail, and I didn't even realize it. And as a side, I take Coumadin, which is a blood thinner. So even when I shave or whatever, I bleed a little bit easier. So I didn't even notice it, but the officer said, you have a little blood on your face and a scratch. And I said, well, I don't even feel that. I hadn't even noticed it. So we went in the mirror and looked at it, and sure enough, I had a scratch, but it was minor, almost like a cat scratch. So I was bleeding a little bit because of the Coumadin. So they indicated at that point, and they talked to him and they talked to me, and I said, I'm pleading with you, don't arrest my son. We are working this out. He's getting help from a number of sources. Please don't arrest him. And
Carr, I'm going to interject at this point. So unfortunately, when there was a 911 call and the officers responded to it, even though you indicated otherwise, the officers took it upon themselves to investigate the matter. Now, they have issued a warrant against Brendan Carr for these charges. Now, although you are the victim, you do not have the option to decide whether the case moves forward as a misdemeanor domestic violence case. That would be solely within the discretion of the Solicitor General's Office of Fulton County, who is the prosecutor. The questions I have to decide today is whether Brendan Carr gets a bond in order to be released, and to whom does he get released to, where does he stay, and whether he has any contact with you and your other family members who occupy that household. So let's address that.
okay.
If you're saying that he has a substance abuse issue,
That is correct. And
what are you planning to do as a family?
okay, that's what. Let me back up and tell you a couple of things real quick. He does live with me. He doesn't have any other place to live. He has a very little income. I want him back with me. We have looked at three different sources now to addressing his issue and his problems. We have gone through Kaiser, who is his health provider. He has a counselor that he has been talking to. He has a psychiatrist that he's been talking to.
I don't want to get into the details of
I just wanted to tell you.
I'll tell you why. This is a open proceeding. Open court is not only recorded, but live streamed to the public.
Oh,
So
okay.
medical and counseling information, where he plans to go, I'd rather you keep those confidential.
Okay, I was basically just saying we've gone through three different sources now helping him.
And that's good news. So let me see, and the state has recommended that he be released on a signature bond, but the question now becomes contact. How do you feel about contact with Brendan, given this altercation and given the fact that the officers appeared in your home finding significant damage to your walls caused allegedly by Brendan, according to the warrant?
That's correct. There has been damage. Most of that has been, if not all of that, was in the past. There was very, very limited amount if any, the other day. So I feel totally confident of Brandon being with me. He's trying to work through the scenarios. We're all trying to help him. My ex-wife, his mom's trying to help him, and his other sources are trying to help him. So I have no problem with that at all.
Okay. Let me hear what the public defense says to say. Ms. Count, anything to add?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Carr, is employed. He works at 2 different locations. He informed me, an Asian kitchen as well as Alpharetta Family Chiropractic as a receptionist. He just started that job. He would not qualify for the services of the public defender after today. I would ask, I'm in agreement with the signature bond that he be released on the signature bond, the $2,000 that the state is requesting through pretrial. Based on the father's statements, I'm asking that he be allowed to have contact with his father as long as it's no violent contacts. And I would like to remind you, Your Honor, that this is his first arrest. Nothing further.
Oh, yes, I've been reminded of that quite often. All right, Mr. Brandon Carr. This is, as everyone keeps reminding me, this is your first arrest. Looks like you have a very supportive father, but I want you to take a quick look around and see where you've ended up today. This is not where any parent would like his child to be, and you have certainly reached a new low. I hope you're able to take stock of what's happening around you and looking at the family support you have. On the simple battery, your bond is going to be $1,500. On the criminal trespass causing damage to property is $1,000. And on the battery family violence, that's going to be $2,500. This is going to be 2, 3, 4. This is going to be a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial services, level 2. What that means is that today you get to, you're qualified for what we call a signature bond. You can sign up for your bond. I'll allow you to have no further violent contact with Floyd Carr and any other member of the household at Steeplechase. You may return to that location, but if there's any future physical or verbal altercations, the police will arrive and arrest you and your bond will be revoked, which means that it can either be converted to a $5,000 cash bond or a surety bond or no bond, depending on how egregious your next arrest is. Do you understand, sir?
I do, Your Honor.
While you are out on a signature bond, you will report to pretrial services twice a month. You will, within 15 days of being released, you will submit to an alcohol and drug evaluation and submit yourself to any treatment that's required. In lieu of the treatments recommended by the evaluator, if you enter any of the treatment programs as recommended by your parent, that will be sufficient to comply with the treatment requirement. You are not to consume any illegal drugs, no alcohol, and not to possess or own any firearms. If there are any firearms in the Carr household, either the firearms go or Brandon Carr goes, because they both cannot be under the same roof. Any and all firearms must either be removed from the household because they cannot be in the same home as Brandon Carr. Mr. Carr, you are also to attend and complete 2 anger awareness classes with pretrial services. But in the meantime, I want you to comply with all treatment as well as comply with the treatment programs recommended by your parent. You must enroll in one of the treatment programs recommended by your parent within 30 days of being released, and you must report that enrollment to your pretrial officer and then show that you are in compliance with your treatment program. The other thing also is you're going to be subject to random screens by pretrial services. If you fail a drug screen or if you fail an alcohol screen, your bond will be revoked and you'll be back in jail pending a hearing on issuance of a new bond. That completes the sentence. Thank you. I mean the bond. Thank you.
Can I say,
Can you repeat the breakdown?
Simple battery, 1,500. Criminal trespass, 1,000. And battery, family violence, 2,500. Signature bond to pretrial level 2. Yes, Mr. Carr, did you have a question?
I just want, yeah, there are no firearms. And then I wanted to let Brandon know I've talked to both his workplaces. They're aware about the weekend work.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Next case, please. Mr. Carr, thank you very much for your input. You're free to go. Oh, and he'll be released within 24 hours, so please don't rush down to the jail right away.
Okay, who will notify me?
I'm notifying you. He'll be
Okay.
released within 24 hours.
Okay. Thank you.
You're free to go, sir. Courtroom 2, who do we have, sir?
Position number 2, Mr. Cook.
Okay. Davis Ray Cook is accused of loitering and prowling, willful obstruction of an officer, and theft by taking from September 21st of this year under accusation 24 CR 6729A. Mr. Cook has about 14 cycles. He has been advised of his rights, and his attorney is Miss Count.
Resident of Memphis, Tennessee, 2023 probation. Open case out of Dunwoody for 2 counts of shoplifting. Open case out of Fulton, theft by taking, loitering, prowling, obstruction. Giving false name, possession of tools. That's 23 CP 221163. He's wanted out of Cobb and Dunwoody, and on probation out of Cobb for shoplifting until 2027.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Peacock?
Thank you, Your Honor. The allegations in this stem from an incident on September 21st where Atlanta Police Department responded to a courtesy call from officers at the M Street Apartments located at 950 Marietta Street. They were notified by security personnel that was watching security cameras that they saw a person later identified as the defendant climbing over a fence and into the apartment complex. They observed him walking through the complex and up to a bike rack where there was an electric scooter that was locked up. He picked it up, put it upside down, shook it, and unlocked it from the bike stand. That's when the courtesy officer, Officer Graham, approached him, directed him to stop. He took off on the scooter and fled. He was detained as he was attempting to get through the gate by crawling under the crawl space. Your Honor, the open 23 CP case in Fulton County that was mentioned is an allegation where, again, he used a blowtorch and a bolt cutter to cut off a lock and steal similar items from Georgia Tech. The state's recommendation is a $5,000 good bond, $1,500 at the loitering and prowling, $1,500 at the willful obstruction, and $2,000 at the theft by unlawful taking, Your Honor. Also, a stay away from the M Street Apartments located at 950 Marietta Street.
Okay. Ms. Counts? Ms. Counts?
Loitering an obstruction.
Oh,
Can
I'm
you hear
sorry.
me, Your Honor?
Your Wi-Fi is going in and out. If you want to switch off your video just to see if that would work. Okay, try that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Okay, yes. I was not aware of a theft charge. I was only made aware of the loitering and obstruction, but nonetheless, my client is not employed. He has not been employed in over a year. He does have a good address local to Atlanta. I understand that he does have some holds. I would ask for your consideration of a signature bond, if not a low of a bond as possible. Nothing further.
All right. On the loitering and prowling is going to be 1,500. On the willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer is going to be 1,000. And on the theft by taking, given the fact that he was just arrested on March 9, 2023, he made a $15,000 bond. And now he's got these shoplifting charges in Dunwoody and a probation hole in Cobb County. The theft by taking is going to be 2,500. This is a total of a $5,000 surety bond. To stay 200 yards away from N Street Apartments, the entire apartment complex, including the fence at 950 Marietta Street. No alcohol, no illegal drugs, and no weapons. And your next court date is going to be October 10. And in the event that he makes bond, he's only allowed to be released to either the Cobb County hold or the Dunwoody hold, depending on who picks him up first. So it's a release to holds only. Thank you. Next case, is it number 3?
No, position number 7, Mr. Hill.
Okay. This is State versus Philando Enrique Hill, accused of theft by shoplifting and willful obstruction from September 20 under 24 CR 6747J. Mr. Hill, you've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Counts. And any prize, I've got three.
Third arrest, yeah,
Oh.
2021 trespass obstruction, 2020 DC obstruction carrying weapon without a valid license. That's all.
All right. Mr. Jones, any recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. Just very briefly, officers responded to 4485 Washington Road, in which a description was given matching the defendant. Officers made contact with the defendant, and upon making contact with the defendant, officers reviewed the cameras at the facility, which showed the male entering the gas station at 5:40, grabbing the juice contents and donuts, and then leaving the scene. Your Honor, the state's recommendation is going to be a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial services, stay away from 4485 Washington Road, and no drugs, alcohols, or weapons while on bond.
All right. Ms. Counts, any objection to the bond recommended?
No objection. Thank you, Your Honor.
On Mr. Hill, theft by shoplifting and willful obstructions, $1,000 each. It's a signature bond through pretrial services level 2. To stay away from the location 4498 Washington Road, 200 yards away. And Mr. Hill, if you get arrested again, this signature bond will be revoked. You have to report to pretrial twice a month. You must make sure that we have a current address with the clerk's court. So make sure that you update us with any changes of address, because if you don't show up to court when summoned, we will issue a warrant for your arrest.
Okay.
Your Honor, just one thing, that address is going to be 4485 Washington Road.
Great. Did I say something else? 4485 Washington Road. What kind of location is that? I'm sorry.
It's the Chevron gas station.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you repeat the amount?
1,000 on each count, $2,000 signature bond through pretrial.
Level.
Oh, level 2.
Okay. You can have a seat in the back. Next, we can go to position number 4, Mr. Griffin.
Samuel Griffin is accused of trespass and possession of a drug-related object. His new case number is 24 CR 6731C. And he's got 28 cycles. Mr. Griffin, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Counts. I have 2 open cases. Would that be correct? Or 1?
One.
1.
September 10th trespass, and he's on probation out of Houston County, 20 years for ag assault.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, if I could address the court before we begin on him.
Sure.
This doesn't need necessarily a bond hearing. This really needs to be reset to the SAP calendar. Just to give you some background, Mr. Griffin was arrested back on July the 2nd for case number 24 CR 00666 and
Yeah.
he was released on pretrial with a signature bond on pretrial. He was then rearrested on September the 10th for a criminal trespass at Emory Hospital. That case number is 24 CR 0064355C. He had an SAP hearing on September 26th and was sentenced to time served. However, pretrial had came off of his bond for the first charge that I spoke of on 2 days prior, and I guess no one caught it at that hearing, and so he's actually been in custody since the 10th of this month. And so he has a hearing again for SAP on the 1st next week, October 1st, and so we're just asking that this case be put on that same SAP calendar to be handled at the same time.
Okay. On the criminal trespass and the possession and use of drug-related objects, going to be 1,000 each. That's going to be a surety bond to stay away from the incident location, and the case is reset to SAP. Ms. Lewis, can we make sure this case goes along with the other case, 662C?
We'll make knowledge of that.
Okay,
I'd
October.
like to do an add-on counter since it's Tuesday, but we'll do our best.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next case, please.
Please go to position number 8, Mr. Hutchinson.
Alan Hutchinson is accused of the following offenses from October 31st, 2023, under 24 CR 6733F. They are battery, family violence, 2 counts of cruelty in the 3rd degree, and 1 count of simple battery, family violence. That's a total of 4 charges. Mr. Hutchinson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. Counts. Got 13 cycles, Mr. Howard. Any details?
Open cases out of Kentucky on probation and Cobb for theft by taking, sale of marijuana. Burglary conviction in the history. Last arrest was in June, Cobb County for trespass, obstruction, theft by taking an FTA.
Ms. Hudak?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, these allegations do stem from an incident on October 31st of 2023. The victim in this case, Ms. Robin Green, did go before a municipal court judge and swear out a warrant. She did allege that the defendant assaulted her by striking her multiple times in the face, causing lacerations to her face. They do share a child. This was done in front of her daughters, Felicia Teasley and Aubrey Teasley. 14-year-old Aubrey came to her mother's defense and he pulled the child's hair, which is the basis of the simple battery, Your Honor. The incident did occur at 4455 Fulton Industrial Parkway, which was a gas station. Your Honor, that you sound for the victim at the appropriate time. I believe Miss Robin Green is on the Zoom call. The state's recommendation is a $4,000 surety bond, $2,000 at each count, no contact with Ms. Robin Green, a stay away from her residence and work, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons while out on bond.
All right. Ms. Robin Green, if you would like to contribute to these proceedings, please unmute and start your video. Otherwise, you have a right to remain silent as well. All right. Ms. Counts, are you counsel for Mr. Hutchinson? Looks like this was a citizen's warrant from a warrant application hearing. And I can't make out the magistrate. Oh, Judge Rickman. Okay. She was the one who issued the warrant on January 19th, 2024. Any comment?
Your Honor, yes, my understanding is that my client has actually been in custody since June 18th, out of Cobb. He was transferred from Cobb to Fulton County to resolve this case, Your Honor. He was therefore driving without a license charge. And so he's been in consistent custody at least since then. I don't believe that he's a threat at all. This is the mother of his child, and he was informing me that he was actually reprimanding the daughter who was sexting a boy, and that's when the mother intervened. And so he does believe he has a defense here. I would ask for your consideration of a signature bond, considering that he has been in custody for several months now and does not have any present income to post a bond. Nothing further.
All right. Ms. Green, if you have nothing to add, I'm moving on. Okay.
And I would just reiterate the no contact, Your Honor, with Ms. Green and her children.
All right. On the battery family violence, that's going to be 1,500. On the remaining counts are going to be 1,000 each. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Total is going to be 4,500. It is a surety bond. No contact with Robin Green. No contact with the minors FT and AT, and to stay away from the home where Miss Green and the children live. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and next court date is going to be October 10th. Thank you.
Next, we can go to position number 12, Mr. Lopez.
Do we need an interpreter, Deputy?
No, he speaks English.
All right. This state versus, I think it's Percy Lopez Gonzalez. Is that your correct name?
It's Eric, Your Honor. It's pronounced Eric Lopez.
Oh, I see. Thank you. It's Eric Lopez Gonzalez, case number 24 CR 006-749B. Mr. Lopez Gonzalez is accused of one count of simple assault family violence from September 27, 2024. Mr. Lopez, you've been advised of your right to remain silent and your attorney is Ms. Counts. I believe this is his fifth arrest.
Yeah, nothing really more to add. 2022 robbery that was dismissed.
Okay.
2022 fleeing obstruction, first offender.
Mr. Jones, what's your recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. So this incident took place on 9/27 of 2024, while officers responded to 1226 Hemingway in regards to a domestic dispute call. Upon arrivals, officer came in contact with Miss Milca, I think it's Milka Guerrero, which is the victim, who advised while engaged in a heated verbal argument, the defendant stood over her in a threatening manner while screaming at her and repeatedly yelling cuss words at her. The victim did tell officers that there had been physical violence to her in the past, and that is why she feared that the accused would strike her at this time. This incident was actually witnessed by the defendant's mother as well, Your Honor, who stated that she feared that the defendant would hit the victim as well. We have had an opportunity to speak with the victim, and she did state that she wants to continue to contact for the defendant and for the defendant to return to their house. However, given the statements made to the officers as it relates to this is not the first time that something like this has transpired, and both his mom and the victim were afraid because of the past instances, the state is going to ask for a $2,000 surety bond to stay away from 1226 Hemingway Lane, no further contact, and no drugs, alcohols, or weapon if the court can sound for the victim at the appropriate time.
Ms. Milka Guerrero, if you'd like to comment in this case, this will be the time to unmute and start your video. All right. Ms. Counts?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Based on the limited criminal history for my client,
I'm sorry. Can I say something? I didn't get the video to record.
Ms.
Milka.
Yes. Okay, when you hear someone talking, especially an attorney, you don't interrupt.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Ms. Counts, would you like to continue?
yes, thank you, Your Honor. As I was saying, based on my client's limited criminal history as stated through pretrial, I would ask for your consideration of a signature bond, Your Honor. My client is not a flight risk. He has ties to the state of Georgia. He is currently employed working at DoorDash. He would not qualify for the services of the public defender after today. Based on the warrant, there was no actual act of violence. He did not hit or harm this female. I would ask again, as stated, due to the limited criminal history, for your consideration of a signature bond of in any amount. Nothing further.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Guerrero, if you would like to comment, you please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
What would you like to tell us?
It's correct. It was just a heated argument. His mom just was scared because, he was just throwing stuff, but it wasn't throwing stuff at me. It was just in relationship heated argument. I was only scared because I have past trauma from my stepdad hitting my mom and having assaulted me, but it has nothing to do with Eric here. I was just scared, so I went to the restroom, and that's all.
All right.
But I would like for him to come home and him be released.
Well, there are going to be certain conditions to this release, but Mr. Jones, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, Your Honor, I just wanted to state that Miss Guerrero did tell officers that there had been physical violence to her in the past, and that she feared that the accused would strike her, and that his mom said the exact same thing. She even confirmed with our victim witness advocate that there had been verbal abuse as well throughout their conversation. Also, given that there has not been an adequate enough cool off time, Your Honor, we think that the no further contact is reasonable here.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lopez Gonzalez, on the simple assault, your bond is going to be a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial services, level 2. After today, you are to have no further contact with Milka Guerrero, and you are to stay away from 1226 Hemingway Lane. Within 30 days of being released, you must update the court with your new mailing address, and it cannot be the Hemingway Lane location. You are to, not yet, you need to listen to this very carefully. You are to stay 200 yards away from Milka Guerrero. You're not to communicate with her in person, through a third party, through mail, email, a computer device, phone device, and even on social media. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. Within 30 days of being released on your signature bond, you will enroll in a domestic violence intervention program. And you must show proof of enrollment to your pretrial officer within 30 days of being released from jail. And you will attend all those classes under that program. There are about 24 classes. They are weekly classes, and you will pay for that program out of your own pocket. Yes, now, do you have a question? Keeping in mind that you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you.
Don't got no money to pay for the classes, and I got nowhere else to go except for 1226.
Well, unfortunately, this alleged violent incident doesn't qualify you for contact with the victim and doesn't qualify you to return to the same domicile as the victim. So you're going to have to figure it out. Yes, Ms. Guerrero?
I can go move with my mom. This is his mom's house, actually, so I can move to 50 Old Holcomb Bridge Way. So he can return back here.
Who else lives in that location?
His brother, his mom.
Mr. Jones, any objection if I say he can return to the property one time only with a law enforcement officer? And if it's determined that Ms. Guerrero has vacated the property, then he may continue to live there?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Lopez Gonzalez, it appears that Ms. Guerrero is going to vacate the premises. She has to vacate the premises within the next 48 hours. You can then go back to the location with a police officer. Once the officer confirms that Ms. Guerrero does not live there, then you may continue to live there. But you still need to enroll in those classes. So between now and the next 30 days, make sure you get a steady job to start paying for those classes. Failure to enroll in those classes can result in your bond being revoked. Thank you. ACDC, is that Francois?
Yes, good afternoon, Judge Law. How you doing?
Fine, thank you. Who do we have?
This is going to be position number 3, Ms. Fontenot.
Okay. Tamika Fontenot is accused of willful obstruction of an officer and criminal trespass under 24 CR 6730C. Ms. Fontenot, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Counts. Any priors? Oh, I've got 6 cycles. Any?
Yeah, she got a bench warrant and a probation hold on the booking sheet.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Peter?
Your Honor, I would also note that she has an open case at 23 SC 189814. Looks like a felony obstruction case, or that was a felony obstruction case, Your Honor. But in any case, these allegations do stem from an incident at 2740 Greenbrier Parkway, which is a strip mall. Police were dispatched to the mall because she refused to leave. security on the scene, and Officer Devin Hudson told police that she was on private property and was asked to leave multiple times. She refused. Officers did run her name and information, realized she had the active probation warrant and an FTA. She refused verbal commands to put her hands behind her back, tensing her body to avoid being detained. Officer Thomas had to use an approved takedown method to get her into custody, and other officers had to help detain her. Your Honor, the recommendation is a $2,000 surety bond, $1,000 at each count. We're asking for a visit, a stay away from the location at 2740 Greenbrier Parkway, and no drugs, alcohol, or weapons while out on bond.
Okay. Ms. Counts? Oops. PD Counts, or Mr. Angelo Dotis, anybody wants to chime in?
As they're coming back on the line.
Oh, okay. Oh dear. Ms. Counts, if you'd like to unmute, Ms. Udox, could you briefly summarize what you were saying? You want a $2,000 surety bond on Ms. Fontenot and stay away from the location?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Counts.
Yes, Your Honor. My client is not working currently. She wouldn't be able to post any monetary bond. So I understand the state is asking for a $1,000 surety, but I would ask for it to be $1,000 signature bond.
Well, unfortunately, she's got a couple other matters holding her at the jail.
I understand.
She's got a probation hold in 22 CR 004316. And she's got a bench warrant in a felony case, 23 SC 189814. The bench warrant is 24 FTA 001. I can't make up the last three numbers, but that's the bench warrant. On her present case, it's going to be $500 on each count. Her total bond is $1,000 surety, and to stay 200 yards away from the entire Greenbrier Parkway strip mall. The next court date is going to be October 10th.
Thank you.
Next, we have position number 9, Mr. Jernigan.
Jaden Jernigan is accused of misdemeanor possession of marijuana, battery against a female who's pregnant, fleeing and attempting to elude a police officer from September 27th of this year under accusation 24 CR 6748E. Mr. Jernigan, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Counts.
7 total, a resident of Warner Robins, couple of probations from 2019, 2018 FTA, 2017 petty theft. That's it.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, Your Honor. So this incident took place on September 27th of 2004, and I have to kind of start in the reverse. So officers responded to 935 Marietta Street in reference to a man beating a woman. Upon arrivals, officers were flagged down by an independent witness who witnessed this particular situation and pointed officers in the direction of where the incident was occurring. Once officers got there, the defendant, they made contact with the victim, Miss Anaya. Her last name is going to be Eacholes, who was lying on the ground in a fetal position. As the officers were tending to the victim, the defendant decided to hop in his car and flee the scene heading northbound. He made a U-turn on Marietta and returned to the incident location and then exited the vehicle and fled on foot. Officers then had to chase him. They finally were able to apprehend the accused, and that's when the victim informed officers that this happened because she requested cheese grits from the Waffle House that they were at, and the Waffle House was out. The defendant got upset and drove to the 935 Marietta Street location, where he yanked her from the vehicle, causing her to strike her head on the pavement. Officers observed a minor lacerations to the head, foot, and a mark on her neck. Your Honor, we did have an opportunity to speak with the victim, in which she stated she did go to the hospital, but she is not wanting to proceed further with charges. She says that she wants to continue contact and for the defendant to return to their residence. At this particular point, Your Honor, the victim is 3 months pregnant with the defendant's child. The state is going to recommend a $4,500 surety bond. Stay away from 935 Marietta Street. No further contact with the victim, and no drugs, alcohols, or weapon. If the court can sound for her at the appropriate time.
Ms. Eccles, I do see your name on the Zoom screen. If you want to say anything, this will be the time to unmute.
Yes, ma'am.
Please raise your right hand, other right hand.
Um,
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
yes.
So did you get your cheese grit?
No, I didn't. And I was upset because I didn't get my cheese grits. And honestly, he was just trying to calm me down. He is no threat to me at all whatsoever. And I would love it if he returns to me. He is the one who is working and providing. I am not working or doing anything. I need him here. Like, I need him here. And when the officers came on scene, he did not jump in the car and flee. He was already in the car and was about to drive away, because I was throwing rocks at the car, and he got out the car to tell me to stop throwing rocks, and I steady repeatedly threw rocks at the car, and I was banging on the window, and he was just trying to get me to stop. That's why he kept on driving around the parking garage at the time of the incident when it happened. And I also stated to Miss Counts, I believe she called me earlier, I did not want him arrested and no charges pressed against him whatsoever.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you understand that the decision to prosecute is entirely up to the solicitor. It's not up to you.
Yes, I do understand that.
Okay. And you also understand that this incident involves a independent eyewitness.
Yes.
Okay. As long as you understand these factors. Thank you. Ms. Counts?
Yes, Your Honor. My client, Mr. Jernigan, is a college student. He's a student at Georgia State as well as Gwinnett Tech. He also works at the airport, and based on his income would not qualify for the services of the public defender after today. Based on pretrial's recitation of his criminal history, he has not had a criminal offense in recent years. And so I would ask for, due to the urgency, it was my understanding that this young lady was in her third trimester. I may have heard that incorrectly, not just 3 months pregnant, but nonetheless, she is pregnant. She is provided for fully by my client. And so and then this definitely is his child that she's having. And so I would ask, based on all of this put together, that he would be granted a signature bond of any amount. I do not believe that he will be a flight risk, and absolutely would like to fight these charges, especially based on the statements of this young lady that she was throwing rocks at him and he was only trying to get her to calm down. And so I would ask for a signature bond for your consideration of that, Your Honor.
All right. Upon arrival, the police noticed the victim, who was lying on the ground in a fetal position. I don't see any allegations of throwing rocks either in the warrant. Okay. On the misdemeanor possession of marijuana, that's going to be a $500 signature bond through the jail. On a battery against a female who is pregnant, that's going to be a $2,500 surety. And driving, fleeing, or attempting to elude, that's going to be a $1,000 surety. The total bond is going to be a $4,000 split bond. No further contact with Anaya Coles. To stay 200 yards away from her and not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. And your next court date is going to be October 10th. Thank you.
Position number 5, Ms. Guest.
This is State versus Berthea Guest, accused of simple assault, family violence from September 26. Ms. Guest, your case number is 24 CR 6732J. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Ms. McLeod. Ms. McLeod, apparently your client has about 17 cycles. Any details, Mr. Howard?
Last arrest is 1999.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Jones, any recommendations?
Yes, Your Honor. So officers responded to 487 Lincoln Drive to a fighting progress call on scene. The defendant stated that she was in a verbal argument with her spouse, Kenneth Muse. The victim actually was gone at first, and then he arrived back at the scene. And once he arrived back at the scene, the victim requested permission. He told officers he requested permission to use the washing machine, and the defendant told the victim not to touch her things. The victim reported that the defendant went into the kitchen and got scissors and then a knife and held the knife and asked him to leave, which is why he was gone. While she was asking him to leave, she was switching the knife from hand to hand, Your Honor. For that, and given there is a DV history between the defendant and the victim, where the defendant has not always been a defendant. There are some cases in which she was a victim, Your Honor.
Okay.
So the state's bond recommendation is going to be a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial. No further contact with the victim, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons while on this bond. And if the court can sound, I don't believe the victim is on, but if the court can sound for the victim at the appropriate time.
Mr. Kenneth Muse, if you are on Zoom, this would be the time to unmute and start your video. All right. And Ms. McLeod, so no further contact. What about the stay away?
Your Honor, this is my client's home.
And Mr. Muse?
My client tells me that he doesn't really live there. Occasionally he may come by, but he has not been living there for quite some time. She tells me that this is her mother's home. It belonged to her late father, and she's always lived there. It is in her late father's name, but it belongs to her mother, and this is where she's always lived. Apparently the parties are now estranged. So, he comes here sometimes trying to wash his clothes or to do something. But my client indicates that she doesn't really want to have any contact with him, Your Honor, but this is her home.
Okay. Well, it looks like it's your client and possibly Mr. Muse, 15 dogs and 3 cats and a partridge in a pear tree. Okay.
That is correct. My client actually runs a shelter there for animals, she tells me.
Your Honor, just if I can briefly add, our victim witness advocate did have the opportunity to speak to Mr. Muse, in which he stated that he does live there, but he is planning on leaving, but right now he doesn't have an alternative place to go to.
All right. So I understand, according to the warrant, Mr. Muse was just released from incarceration. So, Ms.
Correct, Your Honor.
Ms. Guest, if you don't want to follow that same pattern, I highly recommend you comply with the conditions of your bond. Otherwise, you might end up spending a little bit more time at the jail than you would prefer. On the simple assault, is going to be a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial services, level 2. You are to have no further violent contact with Kenneth Muse. You may return to the location where you live with Mr. Muse, and if you want Mr. Muse not to live there, you either have to ask him if he'll vacate voluntarily, or you would need to file an eviction case against him. Do you understand? But in the meantime, you are not to consume any alcohol, no illegal drugs, and not possess any weapons or any firearms. If there is any future altercations with Mr. Muse, you and Mr. Muse or Mr. Muse might end up back in jail with no bond. Your next court date will be sent to your current address. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. That concludes my business before the court today. May I be excused?
Yes, Mr. Cloud. Hope you survived Helena.
Yes, I did.
All right, good. Thank you.
Judge, I'm sorry, Judge, that's gonna be a 2,500 signature bond through pretrial, correct?
2,000 signature bond through pretrial level 2. Oh, 2,500. I'm so sorry. You're right.
Thank you.
Next, we have position number 10, Mr. Jones.
Sanchez Salvatore Jones. Are you Mr. Jones? Okay. His accusation is 24 CR 6734H. And he's got 2 separate counts of battery, family violence, and 1 count of simple battery, family violence stemming from a September 1st, 2024 incident. Mr. Young, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Counts.
6 total.
Okay.
This is Jones, correct?
Yes.
Okay. 2013 simple battery no low, 2009 probation. That's it.
Ms. Tudor?
Your Honor, we also have a 2001 assault on a family member out of the state of Virginia that was null pros, and a 2003 concealed weapon misdemeanor conviction out of the state of Virginia as well. Your Honor, as you did state, these allegations stem from an incident on September 1st. Officers were called to 369 Centennial Olympic Park Drive, where they did meet with Cheryl Jones. While on scene, they noticed that she was visibly upset. She told officers that she and the defendant are going through a divorce, but they were in the same residence, staying in separate rooms. On the date in question, it was his day to move out. It was supposed to be his last night there. She told him to leave. He became upset when she woke him up to do this. He followed her to the bedroom where she began recording him with her cell phone. The defendant cursed at her and threatened to hit her. She called 911. He smacked the phone from her hands when the call was completed and then put a cigarette out on her lower lip. He grabbed her by the legs and dragged her to the bed, and causing a rug burn to her arm. The defendant was packing his bag. She held onto the bag so he would not be able to leave before the police arrived. While she was holding onto the bag, she did injure her finger. The defendant left on foot and was later picked up by a cousin. Officers observed the scratch and rug burn to her left forearm, a slight cigarette burn to the inside of her lip. Also, police officers observed clothes everywhere on the floor that had fallen out of the bag. There were prior reports from July noting there was property damage between the two when the two of them had gotten into it. Your Honor, we have had contact with the victim. I believe she is on the call, so we would ask for you to sound for her at the appropriate time. Asking for a $5,000 surety bond, a $2,000 surety bond at each of the battery counts, $1,000 at the simple battery, a no contact with Miss Cheryl Jones, a stay away from the entire apartment complex at 369 Centennial Olympic Park Drive, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons while out on bond.
Thank you. Ms. Cheryl Jones, if you'd like to contribute to the proceedings, you'll need to unmute and start your video. All right, Ms. Counts, what would you like to add? I'm not sure.
Yes, Your Honor, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Ms. Cheryl
Okay.
also appears to be trying to start something. So why don't you begin, and when Ms. Jones is ready, she can tell
Yes.
me.
Yes, ma'am. My client is working, Your Honor. He works at First American Home Warranty. Based on his income would not qualify for the services of the public defender after today. Your Honor, we're fine with a stay away. They are in the process, it's my understanding, of getting a divorce. So we're fine with a stay away and no further contact. Based on pre-trials, reflection of his criminal history. He's been law abiding for the last 11 years. And so, you know, the state can go back to the early 2000s, but again, he has been law abiding for the last 11 years. And so I would ask for your consideration of a signature bond based on those facts. Nothing further.
All right. Ms. Cheryl Jones, what is
Yes, I just want him, again, it's a temporary protective, I'm sorry.
Raise your right hand.
I'm sorry.
And do you have a jacket near you? That is inappropriate wear for.
I've been moving, you'll get.
Your phone up above your neck, and then do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
All right. Are you still occupying the residence at Centennial Olympic Park?
Yes.
Okay. And is your divorce action still pending?
No, it's final.
Okay. And you said something about a protective order. Are you filing a petition for a protective order?
It's already been filed.
Okay. And is there anything else you'd like to tell me about contact or the property in question that you shared with him?
Just no contact. The day before he actually got arrested in Cobb County, he was threatening to call my job to get me fired for whatever reason. I don't want him to have any contact with me, my family members, my job, or anything.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. You may mute and stop your video, please.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Jones, on the first count of battery family violence, that's going to be a $3,500 surety bond. On count 2, battery family violence, that's going to be a $3,500 signature bond through pretrial services level 3. And on the simple battery family violence, that's going to be a $1,000 surety bond. So this is going to be a $8,000 split bond, out of which you would have to pay $4,500 surety bond through a bonding company or out of your own pocket. Once you are released on this bond, you are required to make sure that you have no further contact with Cheryl Jones. You have to stay 200 yards away from wherever she's located, and that would include contacting her either through a third party, through her family members, or even to her personally. You want to stay away from the Centennial Olympic Park location, that entire complex. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. Within 30 days of being released on your bond, you are to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program. And this is a series of 24 classes. You would need to enroll in those classes and attend those classes continuously until you receive your certificate of completion. Make sure that within 30 days of being released, you also let us know of your new mailing address, since you're not allowed to live at the Centennial Olympic Drive location, Park Drive location. Thank you. Oh, and this will be level 2 reporting, Mr. Howard.
Next.
You said level 2 or level 3? Earlier you said level 3.
Yeah, no, level 2.
Okay.
Level 2, sorry.
Next, we can go to position number 11, Mr. Lewis.
You're right, Ms. Lewis. I did say level 3, but I meant level 2. Sorry about that. Okay. 11 is Gregory Lewis. Are you Mr. Lewis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Lewis, your case number is 24CR6735G, and you've been accused of simple battery family violence and battery family violence from an incident September 27, 2024. You've been advised of your rights, and your attorney is going to be Ms. Counts. I understand that this is his 18th arrest. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
2018 FTA, 2014 disorderly conduct conviction. The violent arrest was in the 90s.
Okay, thank you. Ms.
Yes, sir. I apologize, Your Honor. These allegations do stem from an incident on 9/26, Your Honor. Officers were called to 18 Magnolia Way. Officer Lewis was responding to a disturbance call. Upon arrival, they noticed a woman climbing down from the balcony. She was crying and she said, "My husband is trying to kill me." The victim later identified as Quinethia Lewis, and I will spell that KWINITHI, said that that she invited her husband over because he had no place else to go during the storm. While he was in the house, they got into a verbal argument. He was trying to assault her and kill her. The police made entry into the apartment with her permission. No one was inside. Victim, she reported that that he struck her multiple times while he was in the home. She was seen to have a welt on her right shoulder blade. During a second dispatch call, because he had left the scene, police returned and they saw him attempting to kick the door in. He was screaming, or she was screaming that he was going to kill her. He was observed in the hallway, and again, at that time, they were able to ID him and at that point take him into custody, Your Honor. At this point, we are asking for a $4,000 surety bond, Your Honor, $2,000 at each count, no contact with Quinethia Lewis, a stay away from the location at 816 Magnolia Way, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, Your Honor.
Ms. Counts?
Yes, my client, Mr. Lewis, Your Honor, he is employed. He would not qualify for the services of the public defender after today. He has informed me that unfortunately his wife and he are going through a divorce. She is a known user of drugs and on the particular day was under the influence of a narcotic and having a hallucination. He was not present. This entire situation, he's informed me, did not happen. She apparently fabricated the details of this incident. And so he would be asking for a signature bond. I think pretrial informed the court that he has not had any violent offense since the 90s. And so I would, based on all of these facts, ask for your consideration of a signature bond.
All right. Going to, don't see. On the simple battery family violence, it's going to be $1,000 surety. On the battery family violence, it's going to be a $2,500 surety. The total bond is $3,500. It is a surety bond. Next court date is October 10. He's to have no further contact with Quinethia Lewis and to stay away from the incident location, 816 Magnolia Way in Atlanta, Georgia. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons. And his next court date is October 10. Thank you. Next case, please.
Your Honor, I think that might conclude my business. I did have Mr. Reginald Hammond, but
oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Count, your Wi-Fi is going in and out. So let me. I heard you say you had Mr. Reginald Hammond.
Hear me now?
Yes, Reginald Hammond, position 6. And what do you want
him? He's going to be reset.
All right, let me see. Deputy, do you have a Reginald Hammond in the jail?
Yes, he's in jail, but she's trying to say that she's going to reset him.
To Monday?
Yes.
All right, this is going to be a reset to.
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be a reset to September 30th at 2 p.m. And this is at the defendant's request, so this is not a Riverside issue. All right, Ms. Counts, who's taking over for PD?
So Mr. Dotis will be handling the rest of the calendar, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Counts. You have a good
Thank you.
All right, Mr.
You
Dotis?
too. Bye-bye.
Hopefully my internet's a little better, Your Honor.
I hope so. Crossing fingers and toes. Okay. Who do we have in courtroom 2?
Position number 13, Mr. Mason.
All right.
And Your Honor.
Yes.
If I may address quickly, Mr. Mason has posted his bond. I let Ms. Lewis know, so I don't think we need to address position 13.
All right. I just need to set the bond position 13. All right. So Mr. Eric Santana Mason Jr. is accused of criminal trespass and theft by taking under 24 CR 6742A. And
They're like 1,000 each.
Yeah, and so he's posted bond on each count, $1,000 each, and in addition to posting the bond, Mr. Mason, you are required to stay away from incident location. And have no contact with Alexius Barber, Alexicous, last name Barber. And Miss Hudock or Mr. Jones, do you have the incident location? I'm sorry, I didn't write that down, so.
I think it is, Your Honor.
We can't hear you, Miss Rebecca.
All right, so no contact with Alexis Barber and stay away from 2807 Jasmine Parkway in Alpharetta, Georgia.
And Your Honor, I would note, I did speak with the alleged victim, Miss Barber, earlier today, and would like to see if the state has it as well, because she indicated she did want no further violent contact, that this was some kind of misunderstanding, but of course we'll address that at the appropriate time. So I would ask to sound for Miss Barber or see if the victim advocate with the state has spoken to her.
All right. Ms. Hudock, any response from Miss Barber? Oh, Miss Hudock, she needs to get her audio working. I don't have a Miss Barber on the Zoom, so I'm going to Deputy, we're going to hold on Mr. Mason's final ruling on his bond. If I can take the next case.
Your Honor, just for Mr. Mason, the state has not had contact with the victim. Therefore, the state stance will be because we have not been able to have this contact, and the state will be asking for no further contact.
Yeah. All right, so Mr. Mason, please understand that you're to have no contact with Alexius Barber, and you cannot return to the 2807 Jasmine Parkway in Alpharetta, Georgia. You've already posted bond. You're allowed a one-time visit with a police officer to retrieve your belongings, but within 30 days of release, you are to update the court with your new mailing address with the clerk's office. Thank you.
And Your Honor, one last note. Mr. Mason and Ms. Barber, my understanding is they do share children. I would ask for third-party transfer of any children, and I would let Mr. Mason know that.
Children.
My apologies, Your Honor.
How old are they?
Mr. Mason, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do share children with Ms. Barber, correct?
No, I claim him as mine because we're together, but.
And my apology, he has 7 children there. That's with a separate one. That's my apology, Your Honor.
And children with Miss Barber?
Ma'am?
Are any of the 7 children with Miss Barber?
3 of those are hers that I just claimed. They're not, I didn't have any part in making them, creating them.
All right, so the 3 children that she has are not your biological children. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you don't have any contact with her and her children because that's her family. If you have children with who are living with her but are not her children, then you can retrieve them when you go for your one-time visit.
Another thing, 2807 is my residence, which is also the keys supposed to be getting returned at the end of this month. So
you'll need to find somewhere else to stay.
no, I get that, but I'm telling you, the keys are supposed to be returned at the end of the month because the lease is up.
That's something she can take up with the landlord. She's a grown woman. She'll know what to do.
My residence though.
Yeah, tough. All right. Next court date is October 10th.
Judge, he posted bond already.
Posted bond, sorry.
Yeah, he doesn't have a court date.
No, he doesn't have. He'll need to make sure he gives us a new address. Sorry about that.
This is position number 14, Mr. McLean.
Paul McLean is accused of a PI charge from September 25th, 2024. Case number is 24 CR 6750G We're going to waive sounding on the charge and any reference to the charge. Mr. McLean, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Dotis. Has your attorney shared the charge that's been brought against you?
Yeah. Your Honor, we did speak about it. I would request if we could maybe have a breakout room for this case or take it off of Zoom, but I'll leave it up to the court.
He's also got a companion case. All right, Deputy, we'll take this case up at the end when we stop the live stream. Thank you.
We can go to position number 16, Mr. Orthwing.
I'm sorry, what was that position number?
16.
16, okay. Alexander Jean Orthwing is accused of simple battery, family violence, and criminal trespass under accusation 24 CR 6736F. Incident date appears to be September 26, 2024. Mr. Orthwing, it looks like you have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Dotis. First arrest, Mr. Howard?
That's what I have.
Okay. And Mr. Jones, any recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. So this incident took place on 9/26 of 2024, while officers responded to 500 Northside Drive in Atlanta, Georgia. Upon arrival, officers met with the victim, Brian McCray. Mr. McCray reported he was inside packing his things when he saw the defendant grab a backpack of his with his clothing and put it on the porch. The victim then went inside the defendant's room to find his key, and that's when the defendant pushed him out of the room. The victim went to the kitchen to get a butter knife to unlock the door to get in to get the key. That's when the defendant pushed him outside and slammed the door on his arm as he tried to keep it open with his body. He also slammed the door on his leg on the second time. The victim called 911. Your Honor, I do believe that we have had an opportunity to speak with the victim. The victim stated that the incident began because they are no longer in a relationship. The victim stated that he cannot leave the property until October the 15th. He would like no further contact, some anger management, and a stay away until he's able to completely move out. If the court can sound for him, if he is on, the state's recommendation is going to be a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial services, $1,500 on the simple battery, and $500 on the criminal trespass. Stay away, a one-time escort, and no further contact, no drugs, alcohols, or weapons.
Mr. McCrary, if you're on Zoom. All right. What's your name?
Brian McCray.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. How long have you been living at that location?
For about 1.5 years, close to 2 years.
All right. And are you planning to vacate the premises?
Yes. So I've already been approved for an apartment, the Willow West, Lindbergh. But the apartment.
You don't have to tell me your address. I just need to know whether you plan to vacate.
Yes. So and the apartment will not be ready until the 15th of October.
Is that your move-in date?
Yes, the move-in date.
So where do you plan to reside while you're waiting to move into that new place?
Here at the 500 Northside Circle Northwest, apartment R4.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. McCrary?
Just that I do plan on going to the court on Monday so I can do a temporary protective order, because I honestly am afraid of what any repercussions that could come from the situation. So I would like for him just to stay as far away from me as possible, so I can, just move out and be safe.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Dotis?
Yes, Your Honor. My client is 41 years old. As we heard from pretrial, he has no history. He has been in the Atlanta area for 3 years, and I do not believe he's a flight risk. Regarding the incident location, Your Honor, he did want me to note that the lease is in his name, but he does have other places to stay. He provided me with a name, and I'll get into that in a second. Mr. Orthwain is a doctor and a professor. He's a cancer biologist and an oncologist at a university in the Atlanta area, which is where he will continue to work. The place he will be staying at is with another professor, but my understanding is that once the alleged victim leaves the home on October 15th, he'd like to return and then find, if he can stay there or find his own place, he will. Your Honor, my client wants the court to know that this conflict arose out of the romantic relationship between the two parties ending, and an issue with the alleged victim trying to find a place to leave, but taking his time to do it, leading to more conflict while they still live together, which is understandable. And there were issues with a lack of compromising. As stated in the warrant, Your Honor, my client tried to lock his door and get in his room and stay away from the alleged victim. And my client was afraid, and the alleged victim was able to force his way in. And Your Honor, my client did suffer bruises from that, which were noted by Grady when he was checked out after being picked up on this. And he is planning on going back to the hospital to get those records afterward. Again, Your Honor, in the report, my client just slammed the door to keep the alleged victim out while in fear. And then the alleged victim did, of course, call 911. Your Honor, my client's fine with no further contact. He would just ask for the ability for a one-time escort to get his property and the opportunity to return after October 15th. As Mr. McCray did say, that's his move-in date for a new apartment. My client doesn't want to know where he goes, has no desire to see him again. But Your Honor, because this is his first interaction with the criminal system, I just asked for a signature bond through the jail.
On the simple battery family violence, it's going to be 1,500. On the criminal trespass is 1,000. This is a 2,500 signature bond to pretrial services level 1. No further contact with Brian McCrary, and to stay away from the incident location, 500 Northside Circle, apartment R4 in Atlanta, Georgia. He's allowed a one-time visit with a police officer to retrieve his personal belongings, and then he must update the court with his new mailing address within 30 days of being released. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. He may return to the Northside Circle location to apartment R4 on October 15th, 2024, anytime after 5 p.m. This issue has clearly arisen because the parties don't understand the issue of dispossessory law, and unfortunately, this circumstances has arisen. So it's unfortunate, but Mr. or Dr. Orthwain, you will be required to stay away from the location until Mr. McCrary has vacated the premises on October 15th, after which you're allowed to return to the location. You report to pretrial services once a month, and this will continue until further order of the court. Thank you.
Position number 17, Mr. Sabino. What are you?
This is Justin Sabino Sandoval, accused of simple battery family violence from September 27, 2024. You've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. Dotis. Any priors? I understand this is a first arrest as well. Mr. Howard, is that confirmed?
Correct. That's what I have.
Okay. Mr. Jones, what's your recommendation for Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, Your Honor. This incident took place at 36 Old Holcomb Bridge Road, where Roswell police responded to a dispute at the home. Upon arrival, they spoke to the defendant's mom, who told him that she had permitted the defendant's girlfriend to stay with them. They had a dispute about the house rules. He called their names and slapped her in the face. She responded that he has put his hands on her 2 or 3 times before, but the police was simply just never involved. Your Honor, the state does understand that this is the defendant's first cycle, so the state will ask for a $1,000 signature bond, no further violent contact with Ms. Sandy Sandoval, and 1 day of anger awareness, and if the court can sound for the victim at the appropriate time.
Sandy Sandoval. Ms. Sandoval, I do see you on the Zoom. If you can unmute and start your video.
Yeah, for some reason it won't let me
I think
start the video.
Miss Lewis, there you are.
Okay, there.
All right, please raise your right hand.
Oh, wait.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you comfortable having Justin back in the home?
Yes.
And are you comfortable with him being there with his girlfriend living in your home?
No, she came from another state to visit, and wherever she was staying at, she got kicked out from some family problems they had. And Justin asked me, I can't leave my girl.
All I want to know is whether the girlfriend is still living there or whether she's not.
No, she doesn't live here.
All right, so only person in the home right now is you and soon to be Justin, if I allow it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Oh,
And
wait, so sorry, and my kids, and my other kids, and my husband.
oh, of course, your other members of your household. But the question becomes whether Justin is allowed to live in your home.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And just curiously, how many days did the girlfriend live in the house?
She didn't live here. She stayed here for like 2 nights.
Okay, so she's not a tenant, so you have a right to tell her to leave, otherwise you can be arrested for trespass. I just want to let you know that, okay?
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Doris, any objection to no further violent contact, and he may return to the family home if he wishes to do so.
No objection, Your Honor. I just ask that you make it clear what pretrial conditions are.
All right. Mr. Sabino Sandoval, your bond is going to be $1,500. It's going to be a signature bond through pretrial services level 2. You will be reporting to pretrial twice a month. You are to have no further violent contact with Sandy Sandoval and any other members of the family living in the same home. That means there shall not be any physical or verbal altercations. And if you want somebody else to live in the home, you need the express and written consent of Miss Sandy Sandoval. Do you understand? Now, if you do not want to live with mom at the old Holcomb Bridge Road, then within 30 days of being released, you must update the court with your new mailing address. That's entirely up to you. But whatever you do, you need to make sure that we have your correct address so that we can send you notice of when to come back to court. Because if you don't come back to court, we get to invite you back to the jail in pretty little bracelets like the ones you've got right now. Okay? Also, my biggest concern is this is your first arrest and it involves a parent. So I'm going to require you to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program. This is a special domestic violence counseling program for individuals who need to be taught about domestic violence and hopefully avoid that in the future. Within 30 days of being released, you will enroll in a qualified domestic violence program and you will attend all 24 classes. These are weekly classes and those will be paid for out of your own pocket. Do you understand? And after the 24 weeks, you need to present the certificate of completion to your pretrial officer. Your next court date will be sent to your current mailing address, whether it's at Old Holcomb Bridge or whichever new address you provide to the court. Thank you.
So what was that bond amount again? I'm sorry.
1,500, level 2, pretrial.
Excuse me, Your Honor. The address is a little wrong at the end. It's not Holcomb Bridge Road. It's Old Holcomb Bridge Way.
You're correct. It's 36 Old Holcomb Bridge Way in Roswell.
Okay. Well, thank you.
We have position number 20 and 21, Mr. Walker.
This is State versus Joshua Walker, who's got 2 separate cases with the court this afternoon. Position 20 is 24 CR 6739C, in which he's accused of battery, family violence, and simple battery, family violence from July. Hang on. Ms. Lois, you can remove Sandy Sandoval. As I was saying, Joshua Walker's got 2 counts, battery, family violence, and simple battery, family violence from July 29, 2024. The second case is 24 CR 6741C. He's accused of simple battery, family violence from December 10th, 2022. Mr. Walker, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney for both cases is Mr. Angelo Dotis. I understand he's got 9 cycles. Any priors?
2024 battery DV, that's a pretrial bond. 24 CR 725C. 2023 simple battery against person 65 years or older or pregnant. 2020 simple battery conviction. That's an open case out of Cobb. That simple battery against person who is 65 years or older, and an open theft by receiving. That's all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jones?
Yes, Your Honor. I also, while we're on the history, I also want to give you a 16 CR 004717, which was a battery that was dismissed because the victim was unable to be present. Your Honor, and I think the very first case we're going to start with is 24 CR 006741C.
Okay.
This incident took place on December 10th of 2024, where officers arrived to 7087 Walton Hill at 3 a.m. in the morning. Upon arrival, officers met with the victim, Miss A. Ferguson, who reported that her husband woke her up and accused her of going through his phone, and she denied it. From there, the defendant began yelling and slapping her in the face. Your Honor, what I want to bring to your attention is this is also the same victim from the 24 CR 000725C case, the one that Officer Howard just read, in which he was released on a 3,000 SOB through pretrial services, no further contact with the same victim. And this was in a stay away, which was on February 12th of 2024, Your Honor. So there was another incident that took place. Clearly, this defendant has a problem with putting his hands on women. And also, therefore, the state's recommendation on this particular is going to be a $3,000 cash only bond. Stay away from 7087 Walton Hill, and no further contact with Ms. Ferguson. And hopefully this time he honors that. As it relates to the next case with him, Your Honor, that's going to be 24 CR 006739C.
Mm-hmm.
And the date of that offense is going to be 7/29/2024. So it's imperative that date. That's where officers responded to 171 Chickamauga Place Southwest. Upon arrivals, they met with the victim, Miss S. Sanford, who advised officers that the defendant grabbed her by her neck and struck her multiple times, causing bruising and scratching to both arms and her right thigh. The parties were in a relationship and they lived together. The defendant fled when Miss Sanford called the police, hence why it is now taking almost 2 months for the defendant to be arrested on these particular charges. The warrants were obtained on August 12th of 2024. That will go to the fact that this defendant is a flight risk, Your Honor. Also, he is likely to commit additional offenses while out on bond, as he has that open case, Your Honor. Therefore, on this particular case, the state is going to ask for a $1,500 cash only bond. Stay away from the incident location of 171 Chickamauga Place Southwest, and no further contact with Miss Sanford, S. Sanford.
All right. Mr. Dotis?
My apologies, John. I think I was on mute. Mr. Walker is 28 years old. I have good contact information for him. He does tell me he's a lifelong resident of the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta. He has multiple family members in the area. He does also reside in the area. He has a separate location to go to than the incident location. Your Honor, he was married to Miss Ferguson, but they are currently separated. He is okay with no further contact with Miss Ferguson. He does have 9 children that he is financially responsible for, and 7 do live with him. So he is responsible for their upbringing. Your Honor, Mr. Walker would ask for third-party transfer of any children he shares with Mr. Ferguson. And at this point in time, and Your Honor, he is also, as I stated, he is a lifelong resident of Atlanta. He went to high school at Frederick Douglass High School, and he currently works at TNG Steelworks Staffing, where I believe his job is waiting for him, and he wants to continue to financially provide for his children. Your Honor, at this time, my client cannot afford much of a monetary bond, so we would ask for a signature bond with any conditions the court deems appropriate through pretrial. If a signature bond is not an option, we would ask for the lowest amount possible through a surety bond.
Okay. On position 21, the simple battery family violence from December 10th, 2022. That's going to be a $2,500 surety bond. No further contact with Aranya Ferguson, and I don't know if the address is still valid, but he needs to stay 200 yards away from 7087 Walton Hill, and no illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. No further contact with Miss Ferguson, meaning stay 200 yards away from her. Do not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner, including mail, in person, email, phones, and social media, and even through a third party. Any children that you share with her, you would need to go through either a divorce action or a separation action and get a superior court order to establish joint visitation and custody, as well as a parenting plan. With regards to position 20, this is 24 CR 006739C. On the battery family violence, it's going to be 1,500. And the simple battery is going to be 1,000. That's going to be a 2,500 cash bond only. No further contact with Miss Sanford. Is it Shantalia Sanford? And to stay away from the Chickamauga. I think Mr. Jones had a better job pronouncing that address than I did. But do you have that address, Miss Lewis?
Yes, I do.
All right, the Chickamauga, and Mr. Walker, that means also no contact with Ms. Sanford in any way, form, or manner. And all your cases will be further noticed to October 10th, which will be positions 20, positions 21, and his other open case, 24 CR 000725C. So, Mr. Walker, if you do not make bond, then we will address all 3 cases at your next court date. Unmute courtroom 2. Mr. Walker, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you choose to say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you.
Okay. Okay, I was saying that some of that with my
Hold on, Mr. Walker, we can talk on the phone separately if you want, but I don't want you to say anything in front of the court or on Zoom that we can't take back.
All right.
Thank you. Next, please.
Position number 22, Mr. Wheat.
Mr. Joseph Wheat is accused of criminal trespass from September 26, 2024 under accusation 24 CR 6740D. Mr. Wheat, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Dotis. I understand this is his 75th arrest cycle.
Yeah, would you like for me to go on, or that's enough?
No, I'm good. You, Mr. Jones, what is your recommendation for the criminal trespass?
Yes, Your Honor. It's going to be a $1,000 surety bond, a stay away from 3749 Campbellton Road, no drugs, alcohol, or weapons, and the state is also going to ask for a social worker visit.
All right. Mr. Dotis, anything else to add?
Your Honor, I would just note that Mr. Wheat is residentially challenged, but after speaking with him, he did provide me with contact information in a place that he believes he can stay at with his brother Jeremy Wheat. Your Honor, he wants help. He understands he is struggling. Moving forward, after speaking with him, he knows to stay away from the Texaco gas station. That's the incident location. Your Honor, he can't afford any monetary bond, so I would just ask for a signature bond.
Bond set at $1,000 surety bond. Mr. Dotis, if you believe an evaluation is required, please go ahead and have him interviewed by a social worker. Stay away from the Texaco gas station at 3749 Campbellton Road. And if he decides to live with his brother, Mr. Wheat will need to come and bond him out. Otherwise, his next court date is October 10th. Thank you.
Next, we can go to position number 15, Mr. Murchison.
What do you mean by that social work thing? What do you mean?
Somebody's gonna come visit you to talk.
Who?
A social worker.
This is State versus Corey Matthew Murchison. Case number is 24 CR 6751C. Mr. Murchison, you have 3 misdemeanor offenses stemming from a driving incident. They are driving under the influence of alcohol less safe, driving while license suspended or revoked, and improper erratic lane change. You have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Dotis. Any priors, Mr. I have 30 cycles. Any prior DUIs?
August, DUI suspended license, 2017 breaking entering conviction, 2014 larceny conviction.
Where was the DUI case in August?
Let me look. I think, did you go to city jail? Let me see. I'll have to look it up. State, you know offhand?
I don't.
All right, hold on. I got that. Let me see.
All right, while we're waiting, Mr. Jones, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. So on September 27th of 2024, Officer Jay Parson was patrolling the immediate area of Washington Road where he noticed a brown truck swerve into oncoming traffic. Officer Parson made contact with the defendant, who stated he was trying to get in the lane because of the rain. However, he was already in the lane. Officers observed a strong smell of alcohol coming from his breath, also slurred speech. And the defendant did admit to drinking a Mike Hart's lemonade. The defendant was run through the system in which he had an outstanding warrant for driving while license suspended or revoked, Your Honor. And so that gave rise for all of the charges. The state is going to ask that the court keep the bond set at the preset amount. On count 1, driving under the influence is a $5,000 surety bond. Count 2, driving with license suspended or revoked is a $5,000 surety bond. And count 3, driving improper erratic lane change is a $5,000 surety bond. And the DUI was out of Atlanta City Jail, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dotis?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Murchison is 41 years old. I have good contact information for him, and he is currently working at, I might butcher this, Andine Johnston Construction, where he does sheetrock with the construction company. My understanding is this job is waiting for him. He is the father of 2 children. One lives with him, the other is grown. Mr. Murchison was originally from North Carolina, but he did move to Georgia, the area, within the last year for work with his girlfriend, Takia Smith. Your Honor, I do mention that because he's not as familiar with the roads or where he was that night, and he was confused on what lane to be in. Your Honor, I would also point out that no fields were done. He did agree to implied consent because he wanted to be tested, because he did admit to drinking a Mike's Hard Lemonade, but nothing about that was admitting to being impaired to the point where he can't drive. But my understanding was the tests were inconclusive for whatever reason, unable to be done. Your Honor, he's the breadwinner of his house, and he would be in danger of not being able to provide for his family if he can't get out to go to work. So, Your Honor, I would ask for a signature bond or the lowest amount of bond possible so that Mr. Murchison can get out in any conditions that the court deems suitable to ensure that Mr. Murchison is following the rules of the road, and, driving only with a valid license.
All right. On the DUI under the influence of alcohol, that's going to be a $2,000 surety. On driving while license suspended or revoked, that's $1,000 surety, and the erratic lane change is $500. His total bond is $3,500. It is a surety bond. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no driving until further order of the court. And we'll need proof that his license has been reinstated, he has adequate insurance and proper registration before the no driving provision may be lifted.
The DUI was 1,500, correct?
Yes, no, 2,000 on the DUI, 1,000 on the driving while license suspended, and 500 on count 3. So it's a total of 3,500.
Okay.
And no driving until further order of the court. There needs to be a motion filed to lift that restriction with proof that his license has been reinstated, adequate insurance and proper registration. Thank you. Next case, Deputy.
Let me clear out the courtroom.
All right. And Ms. Lewis, if we can pause the live stream.